A note. Following advice from work-life imbalance may lead to action being taken by HR, your family, the authorities, or higher powers. Welcome to Work-Life Imbalance, an advice show focusing on workplace and lifestyle issues. Any resemblance to actual advice, living or dead, or actual wisdom is purely coincidental. I'm your ferocious foreman, Frank Eastman.
You can't just drop that on me, God. And I'm your cuddly companion, Derek Lewis.
There we go. All right.
How are you doing today, Frank?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you doing, Derek?
Oh, man. I just ate too much pizza way too fast, and I feel like I ran a fucking marathon. Oh.
That's working on your fitness.
It is setting low. Yeah, fitness is this pizza in my mouth.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of these days we will not talk about food on the podcast, but today is not that day.
Today is not that day.
All right. So, want to go ahead and get up into the daily stand-up?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. All right. So for the daily stand-up, I want to pitch a new product to you.
All right.
And we have all these Amazon Echoes and the Google Home and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
People have their home automated, pretty much however they want. But I really think that that's not really what they're looking for. Like they buy those because they're the only things available, but they don't really have what they actually want.
Okay.
So I'm proposing, instead of like the Amazon Echo, you have, Hey Alexa. I'm proposing Hey Alexi.
Hey Lexi?
It is a Russian home automation assistant.
Okay.
So let's give it a shot. Say Hey Alexi.
Hey Alexi.
Hello friend, how are you? What can I do for you today?
Can he do Yakov Smirnoff jokes?
If I knew any, then he could.
All
right, let's try it again.
All right. Hey Alexi, when is my package going to arrive?
Don't worry, I have friend who he's watching package for you. Don't worry. So he put it on the doorstep. It's no problem.
Oh, wow. Okay, so instead of Alexa, we've got Alexi.
Yeah, and then you can go hey Alexi, what kind of shoes are available on Amazon? It's like, hello friend. On Amazon there are 14 pairs of Adidas. No, I said shoes. Yes, Adidas. No, Alexi. Okay, okay, I need some new pants. Let's just find me some more pants. Okay, I have 3 different colors of Adidas pants tracksuit.
So is Alexi what people want, or is Alexi all that people get?
I mean, can't it be both? I don't think people want what they ask for. I think they want somebody to tell them what's good, and I think Hey Alexi is definitely the way to go.
So Hey Alexi is a tastemaker then.
Exactly. I think that some of the Eastern Russian influences haven't quite made it over to the U.S. as strongly as we would like. So
you say Russian influences haven't made it to the U.S. as strongly as we would like. We'll discuss something completely different.
Yeah, before doing the Hey Alexi bit, I may not have thought about the current political climate. Yeah, okay. That may be difficult now because I'm not sure they want a Russian in their home listening all the time.
I mean, they're gonna get one anyway, so might as well.
Go ahead and buy the one that looks sleek.
Get the one that looks good.
Okay, so I'm not saying that I've got like a whole pitch ready about Hey Alexi. I'm just throwing it out there in the universe. If anybody wants to make Hey Alexi, I'm not putting a patent on it. That's fine.
Now, this one's definitely one that can be workshopped down before we put it on Shark Tank.
Yeah, I don't think I'd have a very good pitch for them.
Want to hit the deep dive?
Yeah.
This one came up in conversation. How young is too young for certain nicknames? In particular, how young is too young for, say, if your name is Catherine, for you to be called Kathy?
Ooh.
Yeah, exactly.
See, I was thinking of more like, inappropriate nicknames, or, maybe calling somebody who is a Dennis, Denny or something until they're like 50. I wasn't thinking of the inverse of like somebody who's in their 20s, Catherine being called Kathy.
Exactly. That's one that you don't think of all that often. And is it okay to give someone a shortening of their name that is too old for them?
Now, I'm guessing there's some sort of backstory to this one slightly.
So one of the new coworkers was apparently nicknamed Kathy, and we declared, hey, that seems too
old
for Kathy, and she said, yeah, I know, right?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. So what would be a male counterpart example for that?
The only thing that I could think of when I was giving it a small amount of thought is that there are some nicknames that are also not just too old for people, but too old in a general sense. For instance, it is just no longer applicable to call someone who's named Richard Dick. Now, in the 50s and 60s, apparently that was fine.
Right.
Dick Grayson, Dick Tracy.
A lot of notable dicks in the 60s.
Yeah, there's a lot of notable dicks back in the day, but now it's Rick. Like, you can do Rick, but no one can do Dick.
So my question is what was Dick always a pseudonym or a nickname for the penis? Like
that, I'm not sure. I haven't looked up the full length etymology on that one.
Yeah, because I mean I have to imagine that there's some like two lines on a graph where the usage of Dick as a name for the penis was at 0, and then uses as Dick as a nickname for Richard was on top, and at some point Richard started lowering and penis started rising.
Oh, God.
and so eventually Richard met Dick, and it just kind of kept going the other direction until at some point it's no longer feasible for somebody named Richard to be called Dick. So if that's like a new thing, like a relatively new occurrence that we just kind of bogarted it to mean the family jewels, then
there had to be some sort of intersect point. There was a day, there was a date, there was an exact moment at which it was no longer socially acceptable. Like, this had to have taken place at some point, if you think about it. There's a point on which that graph crosses.
It's a dark day.
It was a dark day for Richards everywhere.
That would actually be very interesting. There are some stories. The most interesting stories I find are the ones that go unreported. I think learning what day penis overtook Richard, I think, is an important date.
And I don't know if we can go to Google to find that out without getting some really deeply weird search results. I mean, we'll find a lot of hits, but I don't know if we're going to find what we're looking for.
Yeah, we'll get a lot of results, but they will not be answers to the question we were asking.
Nope.
Oh my God.
But this is just one of those subjects that's not terribly important, for a deep dive, but also yet strangely fascinating. Because I was giving it some thought. For instance, if you know someone named Barbara, do you know anybody that people call Babs? Nope, that one fell out of favor about the same time Dick did, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I can't Like I've heard somebody kind of colloquially called Babs, but not like, be a serious nickname.
Yeah, not like a serious shortening.
Right.
And so you can definitely tell someone's age, I think, to some extent by their nickname. Because if you say to me that this person wants to be called Babs, I'm immediately picturing a stately lady in her, say, 50s, 60s, 70s. Like,
right.
Somewhere in that general vicinity. Same with, if there's a guy and he wants to be called Dick. Like, the only way that you can still get away with that is if you're in your 70s at this point.
Right, because then at that point it becomes who's going to correct him now? He's 70. Like, call him whatever he wants.
Exactly. And so there's definitely a point at which you're too young for Kathy, but if people call you Kathy, I guess you have to deal with it.
See, my complication is that, and maybe I'm just hanging on to Kathy too much because I had an aunt who was Kathy. So from the time that I was, very small, I always had, and, the oldest person imaginable was a Kathy, at least in my very small brain.
Right.
So maybe I'm kind of like grasping that a little bit too much. And also, one of the problems that I have, is that I don't really think about nicknames too much because with a name like Derek, there's really not like, really not a good nickname for it.
Yeah, like my name is Frank. There's not a lot of you can't really shorten that. Like it is in and of itself.
It's already one syllable.
Yeah, it's one syllable. It is a foreshortening of other words. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, is your name Francis?" Like, no, on the birth certificate it just says Frank. Like that's it. I got the one syllable. There's not a whole lot that I can do with it.
It's like your birth name being like Rob.
Exactly.
It's like, oh, Robert. No, just Rob.
Like if someone's going to give me a shortened nickname, it's actually got to be longer than my name, like right. Frank to Frankie.
Or just some sort of like consonant sound with no vowels, like funk. Hey, what's up, funk? Like, yes, it is technically shorter when you spell it out, but you're still enunciating at least one syllable.
Exactly.
See, like I had a couple of coworkers, years ago, that were just completely incensed that I didn't have a nickname because, like, it was working at a retail chain, and the only way we could possibly pass the time with any amount of sanity is by ascribing nicknames to each other.
Oh no!
So I mean, we had we had some pretty decent ones. None of which I want to repeat because people would probably still know them by that. But yeah, like they tried to make a couple of them stick. Like they try to call me Rick, and I'm like, you do not call me Rick. Like I don't care if Rick is physically in the name. No, that will not work. I have an Uncle Rick.
So no Rick, but what about Dick?
See, but therein lies the problem, is that Dick makes people think that your name is Richard. And
exactly.
They're like, oh, Richard Lewis. It's like, no. They just call me Dick. It's like, well, that may not be so much a nickname as just an insult that became my name.
Now, it's one of those weird things, and I don't necessarily know the complete background, or if I did, I have forgotten. But my name is actually my dad's name, but my dad was always named Jerry. Like, that was his nickname around the house.
Okay.
That's what, my aunts, my uncles, my mom, everybody just called him Jerry. And in fact, he had it tattooed on his arm.
Was that so he wouldn't forget or so other people wouldn't forget?
I don't know. It was Vietnam. I have to assume that drinking was involved.
And that's probably far from the craziest thing that happened.
Exactly. So I'm not sure if the tattoo is where the name came from or he got the tattoo because of the name. But it's one of those things where it's just like a left bank shot off of nothing. Like
he got the tattoo. Just somebody tattooed him in his sleep. And he woke up and was like, well, fuck. I guess I got to go by Jerry now to explain this thing.
Exactly. Like, well, shit.
Yeah, most of mine is kind of like the other way. Like, I kind of find that there are a lot of younger people that I work with that want to go by far too adult names. Like, I'm trying to think of a good example, but like, let's say somebody who is named Fred wanting to go by Frederick. It's like,
are these people hipsters?
It's like, I get that you can be called what you want to be called, but you're just making me work more. Because that's like 2.5 times the letters if you're typing it out. Like, maybe a little less than that. I'm not mathing it out here. But it's going to be more effort to type out. I mean, Frederick, like, that's 3 syllables instead of 1. I mean, you're just costing me time.
But not Freddie.
Freddie I could live with. Freddie would be fine, because that being somebody who's like 19, 20, Freddie, that seems like kind of a younger name, so I could see that being okay.
But not Frederick.
No, not Frederick.
All right, so what if your given name is Richard, but you're like 18?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can be Richie, something like that. I mean, that's kind of
Richie. Okay.
That's kind of spanning the border between like childhood and adulthood. So like, you could be, probably all the way up into your mid-20s and still pull off a Richie. Then once you get like, maybe if you get your master's degree, you don't want to be called, or your doctorate, called Dr. Richie. That may not be so good, but yeah, then what do you fall back on? I guess you would have to go to like Rick or something.
Yeah, from Richie, the only thing you can go to and still maintain any sort of dignity is Rick, I guess, unless you're going to be...
because Rich is not really... I don't know, it's got a weird, like a hard chop at the end. Like, it's not... Like, it's they started to say Richie or Richard and just stopped halfway through. So it doesn't really feel like a valid nickname.
So would you like to go to an audience question?
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
All right. What is the right way to request a coworker not chew loudly on conference calls without offending them? From Grossed Out in Glendale.
Oh my goodness. Oh, my old nemesis has returned.
It's only been a couple of episodes, but we're back to it.
See, my gut instinct is to say, fuck the tact. just go pull out our newly coined no fault cock punch.
But it's on a conference call. Now, if we've got telepunch,
you can't really blast them on the conference call.
Yeah, the only thing that I could think of was one of those air horns, but then that's sort of punishing everybody for the sins of the few.
Right. And I mean, I would definitely take surround sound air horns over even one person chewing loudly in front of me. But I understand that's a choice for each individual person, and maybe they wouldn't make the same choice.
It's a choice we all have to make inside ourselves.
Yeah. And see, I think this has happened to me a couple of times because, we've been on, like, especially on, like, bigger conference calls that have, 50, 100 people dialing in.
Right.
Where it's just kind of everybody out in the wild and you can't really control a lot.
And there's always that guy who just doesn't realize that he's not muted. Right. And it's difficult because not only is he not muted, but he doesn't have like his headphones on or he's not listening to the phone call, and so you're getting like him in the middle of a fucking cheeseburger, or he's having a conversation with somebody, or he's picking his teeth or just something terrible, and you're just like, John, oh God, John, he can't hear us. Somebody mute him.
And yeah, that's the thing, is that on a lot of those conference calls, like, it actually shows like the name of the person whenever they make a sound. So you can see that John is the one gossiping about the other people in his office. Like, that's actually like I'm not even going to call it a fear, because, I guess it's still a fear. I was going to say because it wasn't an unreasonable fear, but it's a reasonable fear that, there's going to be some point where,
you think you're muted.
I think I'm muted.
And you're not.
And I'm not. There were a couple of dicey times on, like, whenever I was running meetings in one of my previous jobs. There were several times where, like, it was a very very heated phone call, and so I would kind of be playing chicken with the mute button. So, like, the people on the other end of the phone would be talking, and then they'd kind of stop and want an answer to something, but, like, somebody was, like, mid rant, so like you'd have to be, like, waiting for them, the person in the room with you that's, like, going off, like, wait for them to take a breath and then hit unmute. Okay, it sounds good, and then hit mute again immediately. It is dicey at best.
Oh yeah, definitely. I have been there working in advertising for as long as I did. Like, you are invariably on those calls where it's like, mute, who is this fucking idiot? What moron would think that this is a great idea? And you're like, the mute button is not, the red light's not on. Oh, well. Oh, no.
That is the stuff of nightmares, Frank. Oh, no. My God. Like, I legitimately have had a nightmare where, I was on the phone with an important client, and, it's kind of like the showing up to class and having to do a presentation in just your underwear.
Exactly.
Like, it's that level of terror, but it was legitimate. Like, I was in the dream. I was on a conference call with somebody important, and all of a sudden, I start, I think at the time I was probably saying something mean about them, and it's a dream, so, maybe it was the truth, maybe not, but
but invariably, like, it's something terrible, and then you realize that it's not. Yeah, that is definitely the work version of having to give a presentation in your underwear. Like, right. I think I've had that nightmare too, where it's just like, I just put the CEO on blast and the microphone was on.
See, and the thing is, like, it doesn't, with these kind of accidents, like sure, like the chewing, if it's, depending on what kind of conference call is, if it's like a telephone only, you may be kind of stuck, but if it's like a WebEx or a GoToMeeting or something, utilize the chat function and just pray that they get the message, or have the presenter to mute them. That's about your only recourse.
As far as tact goes, yeah, I guess the only thing you can do is, like, try to text them through the meeting app and be like, hey, we can all hear that you're chowing down on an extra large fry.
Right, on that plate of extra large nachos. But no, speaking more generally, developers are not known for their decorum.
Really?
So, like, there are times where words escape the mouth before the brain has time to clamp them. And so, you'll have have somebody that's just, on their headset thinking they're muted, and then somebody will say something and they'll just be like, well, that's fucking dumb.
I have been on that call more than once.
And you can hear a pin drop on that conference call. And it can go one of two ways. Either people realize that, like, people are people and that's going to happen, and they move on without addressing it. Or you get, like, the person who is just, like, deeply offended, and they're like, who said that? And so everybody else is kind of in a, do I snitch, and so we can get on with this meeting and get out of this conference room, or do I, like, hold to my principles and not rat out somebody?
Now, given my position, like, this is a legitimate and a real thing. This is why I will have potentially confrontational meetings or phone calls that involve the team in a room instead of just having everybody dial in individually. so that I can specifically be in control of the mute button.
Because you really don't want those developers getting themselves fired.
No, because, it's just going to break down communication. It's going to cause problems with, other people and other teams, and I need to be able to step in, not just to mute it, but to also, be like interjecting myself and saying things in a slightly more tactful manner than, that's fucking dumb. Like, we would like to disagree.
Like you can take those documents and shove them square up your ass.
Exactly.
Doesn't go over well with clients.
No. Yeah, exactly. That just it doesn't go over very well with clients when you tell them to roll that up and shove it up their butt. But
yeah, I think we can definitely make this more about like general conference call etiquette. Because there's a lot of things that are just like straight up faux pas on a conference call, like doing personal hygiene.
Oh yeah, I've had the nail clipper before.
Eating, yeah, the nail clipper. It was that I wouldn't necessarily say that is certainly not at the level of chewing or drinking mouth noises, but it's not pleasant either because like at a minimum you're gonna hear it 10 times. And you hear 10 and then you hear a couple of thumps and then you hear it 10 more times and they just clip their fucking toes.
Oh god, no.
On the conference call.
Oh Jesus.
Now I have not heard that. Luckily nobody has pulled out the piggies and and just clipped them all. But that's not a good idea either. And it's not just a voice conference call. You can get in a lot more trouble with
the video calls that we've got these days.
Holy shit. Oh, man. Now, I have not done anything like untoward or embarrassing on a conference call, but I have been caught unawares before where I didn't think I turned on my camera. And I was sitting there just looking down and then, look up to see
the light.
See the light on. And I'm like, oh.
And then you're like, oh shit, have I picked my nose?
I didn't have a very personal itch.
Everybody watch me eat that candy bar.
It's like they're watching you eat some leftover spaghetti and then watch you drop a meatball and then pick it back up.
Dust it off.
Which I am not necessarily above doing. It matters very much what surface I dropped it on. But no, I mean then everybody thinks that you are just you're just disgusting for having eaten floor food. Which some floor food is okay. It doesn't, but that's for another episode.
That is for another episode.
We don't have to get into floor food.
Now, I have done, and I believe you are in the room, I have surreptitiously taken a photo of the room with my cell phone as close as I could get to the angle of the camera, and then quickly interposed the picture on the phone with the camera itself so that it was just stuck on a still frame,
and nobody realized it for sure. It was very convincing.
Yeah, it was surprisingly convincing. It was like the fucking Italian Job over there.
See, but the thing is, that was a several-hour meeting, and they wanted full attention the whole time. I mean, I understand that you're saying things that are important, but not all the time. Sometimes you're just talking about alignment.
Sometimes you're saying buzzwords about shit that no one really cares about.
Right. I mean, when you get to the meat of the information, then I'll care a little bit more. But otherwise, no, I'll be, browsing my phone or.
I was just honestly surprised that it worked as well as it did. That was when I had cracked under the boredom, and it takes a while for me to crack under boredom. And
yeah, this was hour 2 or 3 at this point.
Yeah, we're 3 hours into this fucking video conference, and I was just I don't know. I've seen it on TV and in movies, but this can't possibly work, can it? And holy shit, did it work.
And the only way that they knew something was wrong is that the camera went blank for a minute while you had to position it, and then you turned it back on. And looking back up at the video screen, like, it looked like it was just a camera.
Yep.
That was so classy. I was like, good on you, Frank. Good on you.
Sometimes I can be a little nefarious, I guess.
But no, like, yeah, on those, so there's two different types of conference calls like that. There's the group conference calls where, everybody's in a room and they're supposed to be paying attention. Maybe they're not, maybe they are. I think it's a little bit less risky for that because, you typically, are pretty safe saying that, like, in the Venn diagram of, like, things that you shouldn't do, like, most of the things that are not appropriate on a video conference call are not appropriate to do with other people in the room anyway.
Yes.
So, like, there's not a lot of things you can do that are okay to do around other people that are not okay to do on a video conference call.
The danger comes in
unless you have I mean, I guess it depends on what the other people who the other people in the room are to you.
Right.
Get a little buck wilds, but maybe the conference call doesn't want to see that.
The danger comes in when you think you're alone, like when you're just in your office by yourself and you're like, I'm just, going to pick up this meatball and pick the hair off it and go ahead and eat it. That's when it's problematic.
Inspected for fibers. Yeah, and I think that's where I've had most of the the moments where I just prayed that I hadn't done anything embarrassing, because, like, most of the time I'm pretty quick on the uptake to know that I'm being recorded, but a couple of times I'm like, oh God, did I dig in my ears or like wipe out the eye boogers from the corners of my eyes, like, on camera? Did I inspect my bald spot on camera? Like shit like that it's like, I'm not two knuckles deep in my nose, but I'm doing something that is best done in the privacy of my own cube.
I mean, more than once I have been sitting there and realized that the camera was on and I was, like, eating lunch while I was in the meeting or whatever. And that's not a huge deal, but it's still just the kind of thing that you don't want everybody to have been sitting there staring at you while you wolf down your lean cuisine.
Right. And a lot of times when I'm on those calls and if I have to eat while I'm on there, I'm trying to, like, hurry up because I may have to say something, or I just want to listen undistracted. So, like, if I'm trying to, like, wolf down a Jimmy John sandwich, like in 4 bites, that is not an image that I want put out to the entire company.
It's like everybody in the West Coast office has now seen my shame with this Hot Pocket.
Just seeing me deep throat a Subway sandwich. It's like, Derek, that's quite disgusting, but also a little impressive at your gag reflex control.
We're horrified yet intrigued.
Right. Oh, no. But you really kind of feel bad for somebody that does something like that. It's not often that it happens, but when it does, like, you have this, like, sinking feeling for somebody else. And most of the time, I think I'd be kind of in the corner of Schadenfreude, where it's like, ha ha ha, sucks for that guy. But I can't help but be, like, very empathetic about it. It's like, oh God, if that were me, I would just want to shrivel into a ball and just die.
I'm just gonna open up the floor, crawl in, pull it back on top of me, and never be seen or heard from again. But none of this necessarily answers what do you do for... Well, I guess we have answered what do you do if they're chewing loudly is you text. But, I mean, what happens if it's you?
Yeah, and I mean, I will say, if I am,
Because, I mean, if you're horking down that goddamn sub, then there's probably some accompanying noises.
if I am, mid coitus with that Jimmy John sandwich, I certainly don't want. I'm certainly not looking at text or paying attention to anything.
Exactly.
So yeah, that would be slightly dangerous. But the funny thing in all this, like what I really want to see is like so okay, somebody is on camera and they're both like giving us a visual and audio treat to this meal.
No.
All of a sudden, like we see somebody else from the same office like disappear from video. And then all of a sudden, on the chewing guy's audio, we hear like thump 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 thump. Just somebody just like fucking people elbows him off the top rope. Just takes him out.
I mean, in a lesser extent, I have done that before. I haven't done a flying elbow over the side of the thing before, but I have had situations where someone has been not muted and decided to have a loud and ongoing fucking conversation in the middle of a conference call, and I've been like, one moment, and I had to get up and walk over there. And I'm sure that you could see me sort of coming up from behind him. Like, listen.
Shut the fuck up. Oh. See, those are the kind of things that make office life worth enduring.
Opportunities.
Because it's like, I don't really necessarily want to see somebody put their job in jeopardy. But there are certainly moments where it's like, I cannot believe. I mean, it's not that I can't believe, but I'm glad that I got to witness the sheer obliviousness of this person. It's like candid camera, but
it's more than once I've been like, man, I wish I was recording that so that I could just snip it out and also not get caught being the guy that released that particular gem on YouTube or whatever.
Right. Watch this fat bastard getting face fucked by a Subway meatball sub. Drop a meatball, pick it up, pull off fibers and hair, and then eat the rest of it. But yeah, so, this is the stuff of nightmares. If I was subjected to somebody chewing on a conference call and I could do nothing to stop them, I would just have to quit. Like, I would have to walk down, tender my resignation, and hope that the next place that I go does not do conference calls.
I could just see the
bet.
conference call. Derek puts on his 1950s fedora hat, picks up his jacket, and just slowly walks out of the goddamn building like, nope.
Like, well, my job is done here. All right. Do you want to get to an issue from the internet?
Let's take an issue from the internet.
All right. So this is from user HamaDryadQ. I am 27 years old and terrified of driving, looking for advice to help me get on the roads. So I did not start to drive until I was about 20 years old. I got my license when I was 22 with very little experience and have not had much since then. I wish I had the independence and freedom that comes with being able to drive, but I am so scared to get out there and do it. Scared I will hit a pedestrian, cause an accident, get hit by a drunk driver. I am sort of a spaz with a short attention span and don't really trust my ability to react to spontaneous events on the road. Also, my mother has a debilitating fear of driving on the highways and over bridges, which certainly transferred to me. Does anyone have any advice on how to chill out, gain comfort navigating the roads? Is there anyone that has overcome something similar? One last note, I live in a big city that's known for its aggressive drivers. Thanks in advance. So,
see, ordinarily I'd say you need to loosen up with a drink, but in this particular instance...
might not be the best way to prime yourself for a drive down the street. So I picked this one not because I feel that this is a funny question, but the fact that we are all driving around in fucking tanks without guns. Like that is the realization I had when reading this question. We are all, we have these like 2, 3, 4 or more ton battle tanks that we choose just to not do combat with, and we don't even think about it. Like, we just get in the car and we drive down to Wendy's, and then we drive back. We drive a battle machine to go get a sandwich. That is the age in which we live.
I mean, that's true. Like, the vehicle is probably the most deadly thing that any of us are going to operate at any particular moment, and we're all so completely blasé about it.
Absolutely. I mean, I could literally just like carry a chainsaw, like just go into a crowded area and spin around with a chainsaw, and I probably did not cause as many deaths as were caused by vehicles in a very small area around there. I personally have never really had a fear of driving. I've always connected driving to like independence and freedom and being able to go out and do the things that I wanted to do. So it never really like I had a respect. Like I would pay attention. I would try to keep myself and others with me safe. But never really had like a very specific fear of driving. But Jessica, on the other hand, she has just a very guttural, visceral fear about driving. And right. She rode with a family member who was just completely bonkers driving. Like they would like pass like several cars in a row, like just doing all this stuff that really kind of that kind of gave them a decent fear of God while riding in a car. And so when we got married, I wasn't really going to pressure her because it didn't really matter that much. But it eventually got to the point where she's like, I'd like to see if maybe I can drive a little bit. And so, we give it a shot, and she still has this really debilitating fear. So, I'm trying to like talk her through it. It's like, okay, I mean, it's just a car, it's just oh my God, it's just a rolling death trap. It's like, oh my God, we've got to get out of this thing.
What are we doing? Why do people
Where's the
do
eject
this?
button? So yeah. In that moment, I was like, wow, it's not you that has a problem. I'm not afraid enough.
Kat grew up in a fairly urban environment, and in fact did not need to learn to drive until after we had gotten married. And like it was kind of one of those harrowing experiences. She ended up learning to drive not from me but from my dad, just because like trying to teach was not necessarily working out very well.
Right.
Because for me, at least, like I had learned to drive a while before that, and I guess I had forgotten what it was like to have not driven before. Then again, for me, like driving never necessarily meant freedom. It was in fact the chains of bondage that were placed upon me.
How
because
so?
I had a younger brother.
Oh,
and I knew that the moment that I was, able to drive, that was going to be my ass for the next however many years, was chauffeuring him and myself around to various things. Okay. And I honestly wanted no part of it.
Right. See, I was the opposite. I was actually the younger brother in this case with older siblings that refused to drive me anywhere. Like I was not, I was not allowed to drive their vehicles. Like, they would not take me to buy, I guess at that point would be video games. That's about the only thing I actually did back then. So I don't think I got many rides from my siblings. And so as soon as I turned 16, got an old beat up truck, and, it was my dad's old work truck. And, started driving it around. But I've been driving more or less like around like the hunting clubs and stuff since I was like 14. So, I always had like a fondness for driving. Some of that has worn off considerably since I have to do it every day, multiple times
every
per
day, all the time.
It's less of getting to do it as opposed to having to do it now. But I people would always like you'd always watch those videos when you were like in high school of like right before the prom or before homecoming, they'll do this like skit where like
blood on the highway.
Yeah, blood on the highway, and they roll out like two shitty burnt out cars, and then they like push them together, and then people fall out of the car. It's like, oh, I'm dead. It's like you have you have plenty of opportunities to see stuff like that when you're younger, but I always thought it was kind of lame. But no, like now that I'm in my 30s, and I actually, since I have picked this question to put on the podcast, I've been in a wreck. Like somebody,
oh no,
somebody clipped my rear bumper, and it's the first time that I've had vehicle to vehicle contact in 15 years, something like that. So it's been a long time. And so like it was just at this moment where I saw it, because like I said, they clipped my rear bumper. So if I'd been a little bit slower, they would have T-boned me. But like I saw their lights as it passed my passenger window, and I was like, this is it.
This is how I die.
Yeah, this is how I go. Boy, I wish I'd finished that bag of Doritos before I left. Which sure is a shame they won't get eaten now.
I have gotten in a decent number of wrecks, and most of them, I'm not going to say none of them, but I would say 90% of them were not my fault. A lot of them have occurred in the city of Atlanta. I hate driving in Atlanta, and I'm going to have to go back to Atlanta. But I do not go into the city of Atlanta without just like mentally writing off my car.
I mean,
I'm just like, yep, this car is gone. If I come out of Atlanta with this car, I guess I'm doing good. But I'm fully going in expecting this shit to get totaled.
When this question asker said I live in a big city that's known for its aggressive drivers, like my first instinct was that it's Atlanta. Like
Atlanta or Boston.
Yes. Oh God. I've only been in Boston twice, I think, and neither time I was driving. And I was very glad that I wasn't, because the townie that was driving me around in the pickup service, yeah, they were upset. like they were getting mad. So I would have just been in some sort of burned out collision on the side of the road. So yeah, that would not have been fun. But no, I grew up around a country road, so like the road by and large was pretty dangerous, but like if you just go the other direction, it's pretty safe.
Right.
So like there wasn't a whole lot of like city driving and things like that. I kind of learned in Tuscaloosa, which years after and years before Alabama football was doing pretty well, it was pretty calm in Tuscaloosa. That's many year stretch of like Dubose and Francione and all these other folks, like the end of the Stallings years and stuff like that. There was nothing going on in Tuscaloosa, so
no one cared.
Nobody cared. So it was pretty low population. You could drive around and didn't really interact with too awful many people. But now, holy shit!
Oh yeah,
I live in Birmingham now, which that's not pleasant. But going back to Tuscaloosa, it is like legitimately, people in Tuscaloosa are insane. Like, when I'm in Pelham or Birmingham, like I'll be looking for people that don't use their blinker. It's kind of like a road game that I play to keep myself entertained.
Spot the asshole?
Yeah, exactly. And I'll reach my destination only seeing 2 or 3 people that did something that broke a traffic law. So I mean, we're talking a fairly good record. But you go to Tuscaloosa. I drove around Tuscaloosa for probably 40 minutes total, and I nearly died 10 times. Like these.
Well, I mean, it's like a college town,
right? But even the townies drive like idiots, and I was one of those townies, so I know. I mean, it's kind of like being getting out of it after the fact and looking back. It's like, my God, is this what I was doing to people?
Is this who I was?
I deserved all those birds they flipped off at me. But I can definitely see how city driving would be much more harrowing, especially to learn in, especially where there's like really crowded roads with very aggressive drivers.
So this person is trying to figure out how best to learn to drive when they're in their mid to late 20s in a busy city. I don't know if they necessarily need to. If it's a decent enough sized city, that's one of the problems I have, is that to get around anywhere, especially in the United States, you have to drive. So part of me would be like, well, if you're in a large enough city, you can just take public transport. But having experienced many of the larger cities in the United States, I'm like, that's not really something that I can recommend all that well.
I mean, there are a handful of cities where, there's really good public transport. But by and large, most of the big U.S. cities, the big metropolitan areas, do not have good public transit.
Oh, I mean, just not all that long ago, I was in Washington, D.C. and taking the public transit there. And it is in and of itself a harrowing experience. And I will go out on a limb and say that the Washington, D.C. transit system is well put together.
Right.
Except for a few glaring errors. One of the major being that a bus can have the same name, but depending on what direction it's going, it goes in completely different areas.
Right.
And it then stops and changes its name. They don't make loops.
Right.
And I found this out because some they just, you loop. So if you're on a particular bus, eventually it's going to go back past the point that you were on.
Right.
So if you get on this particular exit, or you get on at a particular stop, eventually you're going to come back to that stop. But nope. If you miss your stop in Washington, D.C., you will find yourself on the opposite end of the goddamn city, and then they will be like, well, that's it. This bus is out of service.
Right, I'm going on break.
Yep. And that literally happened. We missed a stop, didn't realize that we had done so, and were on the opposite side of the city, and the guy stopped the bus and was like, this is the last stop. This bus is no longer in service.
It's like, what do you mean?
And we were like, awesome. It's me and my whole tourist family, and we're just here at a homeless camp.
Right, just ripe for the robin.
I was like, awesome. This is exactly where I wanted to be.
Next stop on our tour of human depravity, the homeless tent city at the end of the bus route.
Like, oh man, the Smithsonian of sadness,
Uh-huh. Yeah, not one of their more popular exhibits, but definitely one of the more...
We got the natural history, we've got botany, we've got aeronautics, we've got crushing poverty.
It's like, wait, what? Huh?
Wait, what?
It's like, oh, yeah. Aeronautics, dinosaurs, crushing poverty. It's like, you keep saying that one under your breath. Maybe we should talk about that one. No, and this is kind of, watching a lot of shows from... like the UK and stuff like that, like, it's very apparent that, like, over there, if you drive 2 hours, like, you could almost cross, like, the thinner parts of the country.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas, people who come to vacation in the US, like, they think, okay, well, I'll rent a car, and I'll spend 2 hours in the car and drive Or I'll spend, I know U.S. is a big place. I'll spend 6 hours and go coast to coast. Oh, nay.
Nope.
You're still in Alabama, motherfucker. like you ain't left the deep South quite yet.
Our states are the size of your entire countries.
Right. And I looked several times, just double checking my math. But, essentially, the entire area of the UK can fit inside of, or England, Great Britain specifically, like can fit inside of Texas. So that's kind of a weird thing. Like your entire country is in Texas.
Although, granted, have you ever had to try to drive across Texas? You will think that you have died and gone to some sort of terrible purgatory where you just are driving through flat, blasted fucking nothingness forever.
I've seen this in a video game before, I think.
Yeah, Desert Bus is that game that they play on like Penny Arcade or whatever for the charity thing. That's just Texas Sim. Like
oh God. But in the UK, you probably can take public transit or whatnot from, place to place pretty easily and it makes sense. But if you only are relying on public transit, like you are stuck in your city. Like you can't go to like a neighboring city unless you have like a very convenient like bullet train or something, which would be great if they had a better infrastructure for, but by and large they don't. So you're hopping a Greyhound or hopping an Amtrak or something like that. And these days Amtrak is not the way to go. You might want to just hire some people to build a big catapult and just sling you to the other city, because that may be safer than taking something like Amtrak.
I will say, for all that the American rail system gets a bad rap, I actually took rail from Boston down to New Haven, Connecticut, to visit friends once. And it was the first time that I'd actually tried to utilize the rail system for a trip of any length.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't all that terrible. Like, that's not necessarily the funniest possible story, but I was like really expecting some Mad Max hellscape horseshit to be going on. And I was just like, oh, it's actually easier to get on this train than it is to get on an airplane. So that's new.
I mean, A, that's not saying much, and B, overall, those statements you just strung together were not a glowing recommendation for the rail system.
that's next on our advertisements. That's my Amtrak pitch.
Amtrak. I took Amtrak, and I didn't get hobo stabbed or thrown off a cliff.
Amtrak.
4 stars.
Amtrak. I wasn't eaten by cannibals.
Although if you watch Train to Busan, apparently not every train is like that.
Oh.
Some trains do have flesh-eating cannibals on there.
I haven't seen that film. You've just ruined it for me.
Let's just say in the opening 5 minutes, you get a good clue.
Oh, okay. It's not like...
It's a fucking zombie movie. It is not a surprise that there are zombies.
Zombies. Okay, I thought it was like Soylent Green.
No. It is a zombie movie. There may be even a zombie on the cover. If you go in that blind to where you didn't even like you just like told your Amazon Echo to play Train to Busan, and you held your eyes closed so you didn't get spoiled by the cover art. You would have to try really hard not to know that was about zombies. So I do not feel bad spoiling that for you.
This isn't Murder on the Orient Express at all.
Yeah. I've got nothing constructive to say about learning to drive. It is a valid fear. But sometimes as adults, we got to do stuff that we don't necessarily love to do. You can only control you. Don't fuck around on your phone. Don't do anything but look directly ahead or to the side or to the rear as may be needed. And get from point A to point B safely. Like, shit's gonna happen, but like if you're gonna die in a car wreck, you might have been hit by a meteor too. So you don't know.
I think adulthood is just what you described. Like, adulthood is sometimes you've got to do shit that you don't want to do. Like,
And there's always a risk of death.
Yeah. There's in terms of like driving, if you're ever interested in just making sure that Jessica will never even get into a vehicle again, on Netflix, there is a show called Canada's Worst Drivers.
Oh no.
Oh yes. No. And it's one of those reality game show type things, except they do it nicely because it's Canada.
Right.
And people get voted off the island for being successful.
Okay. So if they become better drivers, they get voted off?
Yeah, so essentially as they become better drivers, they get released from, terrible driver school.
Okay.
But some of these people, it's just like, oh my God. Like one of the seasons, the guy who, I don't think I'm going to be spoiling it for anybody, who ends up being the worst driver, literally is blind in one eye.
Oh God.
Like he's got a glass eye and just has never taken any sort of precautions and thinks that he's great at driving. And you're just like, my God, these people, you're taking your life into your own hands every time you get on the highway because one of these yahoos may be out there.
Right. Well, see, what I thought you were about to say about the competition show is at the end of every episode, they vote off the worst driver. So, like, the worst people never actually get better. Like, that's what I thought you were going to tell me.
No, it's Canadian, so of course they've got to do it nicer than we do in America. So instead, as you demonstrate that you're not a complete fuck-up and or that you have learned something, they release you from the program.
See, now that is something I can get behind. That is reality TV with heart.
like I won the show. Aw.
Oh my God.
I won. What do I get? The terror of everyone who ever meets you from now on, knowing that you just stepped out of a vehicle.
Oh, you win. It's like you won. What do I win? We're revoking your license.
The thing is, like, they can't. It's not, like, it's a TV show.
Not legally binding.
It's not legally binding, but more than once they're like, we can't make you, but we deeply suggest that you just hand in your license and stop this for the safety of everyone around you.
Hey, we did another promo.
There we go. Shit, this is just an ad reel.
We're just giving shit away for free today, aren't we?
This is our free ad reel.
Oh, all right. Well, I think we've done enough work for free. You want to punch the clock? Do you have any questions you'd like for us to answer on air? You can send them to questions@wlicast.com or any feedback or comments to feedback@wlicast.com. You can also visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/WLIcast and on Twitter at WLImbalance and use the hashtag WLIcast.
This has been the Work-Life Imbalance Podcast. I'm Frank Eastman.
I'm Rick Lewis.
And with that, I think we're going to need to transfer you. Rick Lewis.
See, I'm making referential comedy to the stuff we said earlier in the episode.
That's a callback.
That's what we call a callback. Oh, goodness.
Oh, Rick Lewis, my chapped ass.